The rain didn't start with a drizzle. It poured like the sky itself was mourning. I stood there, outside the cemetery gates, soaked to the skin, my fingers curled tightly around the single white lily I'd managed to save from being crushed in the crowd. My breath came out in cold bursts. My stepmother stood near the casket, dressed in sleek black, her arms looped around her two sons. She didn't glance my way, not once, but her voice carried. And when I stepped forward, ready to say goodbye to my father, she turned, sharp as a blade. Her lips curled in a disgusted smirk. "Don't even think about stepping any closer, Mira." She practically spat my name. "You meant nothing to him. You weren't even blood." Gasps fluttered across the small crowd like a wind hitting dry leaves. Some looked away awkwardly. Others looked right at me, pity written across their faces like graffiti. I didn't cry. Not there. Not for her. Not for them. I just nodded. Took one last glance at the closed casket, at the man who once lifted me onto his shoulders so I could touch the stars, and turned away. I walked back to the parking lot. Rain slapping the pavement. My clothes stuck to my body, my hair clinging to my face. I got into my 10-year-old Corolla and shut the door. And then, for the first time that day, I broke. My whole body trembled as I gripped the steering wheel. My chest felt caged. A silent scream pressed behind my throat. He was gone. My father, stepfather, technically, but the only real parent I ever had. And now he was just ashes and legalities, erased from me by a woman who'd never accepted me. I pulled myself together when I saw the text. "Mr. Carson's will is being read tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Benton and Green Law offices. You are requested to attend." Requested. Not invited. Not welcome. But I'd be there. Even if I had to stand in the back. Even if I had to listen to her gloat about how she now owned every inch of his world. I wouldn't let her erase me. Not from his story. Not from mine. The next morning, the law office smelled like polished wood, old money, and too much ego. Laura, my stepmother, sat in the front with her lawyer and her two smug sons. She wore a designer dress and pearls that didn't belong to her yesterday. I recognized them. Dad bought them for my birthday dinner last year because I'd admired them in a store window. She met my gaze just as I stepped in and gave a laugh that was more of a snort. "Oh," she came. "Isn't that brave?" she whispered to her lawyer. "Loud enough. On purpose." I said nothing, just sat 2 rows behind. The room quieted when Mr. Davidson, Dad's longtime attorney, entered with a folder tucked under one arm. He was in his 60s, his gray hair neatly combed, glasses perched on his nose, and eyes tired from years of watching families break apart over money. He cleared his throat. "This will was updated 6 months ago by Mr. Jonathan Carson." Laura perked up. So did her sons. They leaned forward slightly. "To my wife, Laura, I leave," he paused, scanning the document. "My sincere wish that she finds happiness and the beach house in Cape Cod." A brief flicker of surprise crossed her face. The beach house? That was it? He continued. "To my stepsons, Ethan and Joel, I leave my vintage car collection. Use it wisely, boys. Don't wreck them like you wrecked your last chances." The room shifted. A few nervous chuckles. Her son's smirks faltered. Then Mr. Davidson looked up. "To Mira Hastings, the girl I raised as my own from the age of 7. The room froze. "I leave all remaining assets, including my shares in Carson Tech, my personal savings, stocks, investments, and primary residence. She is to be the sole executor of my estate and my chosen successor in all family trusts." The glass in Lara's hand slipped. It shattered on the hardwood floor. She looked at the lawyer, then at me. Her lips parted in disbelief. "This is a mistake. She's not even his real daughter." Mr. Davidson remained calm. "This will was recorded on video. Would you like us to play it?" Silence. Even the air stopped moving. I stood up, my voice steady. "No need. I already know what he thought of me." Laura opened her mouth, eyes wild. But nothing came out. Just a sharp inhale. Outside the building, I sat in my car again. But this time, my hands weren't shaking. The rain had stopped. Sunlight was beginning to break through the clouds. Not revenge. Not gloating. Just peace. But this wasn't the end. The real storm hadn't even started yet. Because inheriting everything from a man you loved while being hated by everyone else who wanted it is never the happy ending. It's just the beginning. The days that followed were a blur of silence and simmering tension. I didn't go on social media, but my phone still buzzed with messages I didn't want to read. You're disgusting. Hope you're proud of stealing from your family. Rot in hell, gold digger. Not from strangers. These were from Lara's circle. My stepmother's friends, her cousins, her son's girlfriends, even people I barely knew. All of them felt justified in sending hate because the narrative Lara had spun was already rooted deep. I was the outsider. The girl who stole everything after Jonathan died. What they didn't know was that he taught me how to run the company. That while they were at charity galas sipping champagne and taking selfies, I was in the study helping him restructure investments, preparing quarterly reports, reviewing project blueprints. He didn't choose me because of pity. He chose me because I earned it. The first time I walked into Carson Tech's headquarters as its new acting chairwoman, the air grew thick. People paused mid-conversation. Some stood a little straighter. Others averted their eyes. Lara had been spreading rumors here, too. I heard the whispers as I passed. Isn't that the girl he adopted or something? Didn't she get kicked out of the funeral? She's just some secretary. How can she run a tech empire? I kept walking. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, the senior board was waiting. 12 men and 2 women, most older than me by at least 2 decades. They didn't clap. No warm welcome. Just cold nods. Mr. Grayson, the acting CEO in my father's absence, stood up. Ms. Hastings, we expected someone more experienced. His tone was polite, but the condescension dripped from every syllable. I set my folder down. And I expected a company that's not 6 weeks away from breaching a major vendor contract. I replied calmly. He blinked. I flipped open the folder and slid the papers across the table. You've got an operations bottleneck in the Shenzhen partnership. You've delayed payments twice. If we don't fix this now, we'll lose exclusivity on the new chipset. Which means the South Korean firm swoops in. One of the board members finished, leaning forward. I nodded.
Exactly.
My father didn't raise a fool. And I'm not here to be your puppet. For the first time, silence gave way to interest. That night, I visited his study. Our study now. The one room in the house Lara never touched because it smelled too much like spreadsheets and cigars. I lit the lamp on the desk. Its warm glow wrapped around the dark wood like a familiar embrace. His chair still held the shape of him, like time hadn't caught up yet. As I opened the locked drawer on the right, his private drawer, I found a letter. My name on the front. His handwriting. I opened it slowly. Mira, I know you'll read this when I'm gone. If you're holding this letter, it means I trusted you more than anyone. You were always more than a stepdaughter. You were my compass. My reason.
Take the company.
Protect it.
Grow it.
And don't let the noise drown your heart. They'll try to tear you down. Don't let them. You're stronger than you think. Tears filled my eyes, not out of sadness, but because I needed that. More than anything. The next morning, I received an unexpected call from the lawyer. There's one more clause in the will, he said. It only activates if Lara contests the will. Which she did. Publicly. My heart raced. What clause? A video message. Jonathan recorded it specifically to address the matter, if it came to this. Would you like to view it alone? I stared at the floor.
No.
I want her to see it. I want the world to see it. 2 days later, the entire Carson Tech auditorium was filled. The board, the senior team, media reps, and yes, Lara and her 2 sons seated in the front row with smug faces. The screen flickered. Then there he was, my dad, in a blue sweater, seated in the same study I had just cried in days ago.
His voice was steady.
If you're watching this, Lara, it means you tried to take what wasn't yours. And if Mira is in that room, it means she fought her way through it all. Lara shifted in her seat, eyes darting around. You married me for comfort. I knew that. But I let you stay because I thought you might grow to love Mira, like I did. You didn't. You bullied her. You excluded her. And when I got sick, you only got crueler. Murmurs echoed across the room. Someone gasped. So I made a choice. One I do not regret. Mira is my legacy. And if anyone doubts that, maybe you should ask yourself why she was the only one who visited me in the hospital after the third surgery. The screen went black. Silence. Heavy. Complete. And for once, Laura had nothing to say. But I wasn't there to humiliate her. I wasn't there to rub it in. As everyone began to leave, I approached her slowly. She didn't look up. I'm not going to fight you anymore, I said softly. You can keep the beach house. I've already decided to convert the estate's assets into a scholarship fund for girls who never get the chances I got. You'll be credited as part of the founding family. No one needs to know anything else. She finally looked up. Her mascara was smudged. Her hands trembled. Why? She whispered. Why would you do that? Because he wouldn't want me to become what you were to me, I replied. The press called me the quiet storm. But I didn't care about titles. I cared about carrying his name with dignity. And in doing so, I found peace. And purpose. 3 weeks later, I sat across from a business tycoon who used to dismiss me as the intern who tagged along with Jonathan. Now, he poured me tea himself. His tone was careful, polite, slightly nervous. Ms. Hastings, you've managed to triple investor confidence in less than a month. That's impressive. I gave a slight smile. It's Mira. And I didn't do it alone. It wasn't about revenge. It never really was. It was about restoration, respect, balance. But that balance came with a price. I returned home one evening to find a box at my doorstep. No note, just an old cardboard box with duct tape on the sides. Inside were photographs. From years ago. Photos of me with my father, laughing at the lake house, blowing out birthday candles, hugging him on the porch after a college rejection letter. And one letter, written in shaky handwriting. From my grandmother, Dad's mom. We hadn't spoken in years. She'd never accepted Laura as his wife. She left when I was 13. Sweetheart, your father wrote me often, told me everything. I wasn't there for you, and I carry that. But I want you to know, he loved you like blood. He told me you saved him more than once, when the pain got too loud. I wasn't brave enough to stand by you then. I hope these pieces of him bring you the warmth I couldn't. My hands shook. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor and let myself sob, tears that hadn't found release at the funeral, the will reading, or even the victory. Because finally, it hit me. This wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about grieving, about letting go. That weekend, I drove to the small, crumbling house where Laura now lived. She had moved out of the estate days after the video was played. She opened the door, surprised. She wore no makeup. Her voice cracked. What are you doing here? I held up the envelope. There's something I want to return. Inside was a photo of her and my dad on their wedding day. He looked young, hopeful. She looked radiant and real. She stared at it for a long time. Why bring this? She asked. You could have burned it or thrown it away. Because he loved you once, I said gently. Even if it didn't last the way you hoped, that part of his life deserves to exist. Tears welled in her eyes. She blinked rapidly, clearly overwhelmed. I was awful to you, she whispered. And I won't ask for forgiveness. But thank you for this. I nodded. I'm not here to rewrite anything. Just to stop the bitterness from spreading. That's what he would have wanted. Weeks passed. Then months. I started a mentorship program for underprivileged girls who wanted to enter tech. We called it the Carson Initiative. Every time I stepped into a classroom filled with hopeful eyes and nervous smiles, I felt something inside me shift. I wasn't just protecting his legacy anymore. I was building mine. One afternoon, while visiting a school, a girl around 12 tugged on my sleeve. Are you really the Mira Hastings? The one who owns that giant company? I crouched to her level and smiled. I help run it. But I'm also just someone who lost her dad and didn't know who she was without him. She nodded solemnly. I lost mine too. Do you think they still see us? I swallowed hard.
Yeah.
I think they do. Especially when we're doing the things they'd be proud of. She hugged me, and for a moment, I felt like that scared, grieving girl at the funeral gates again. But this time, I wasn't alone. I wasn't broken. When Laura emailed me months later, formally through a lawyer, I expected hostility. But her message was short. I heard about the Carson Initiative. If you're ever open to it, I'd like to make a donation in Jonathan's name. Quietly. No credit needed. I stared at the screen for a long while. Then I typed. Thank you. I think he would have liked that. Some wounds don't need revenge. Some wounds just need light and time. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do isn't forgiveness. It's choosing not to pass on the hurt. It was almost a year since the funeral. A year since I stood outside the gates, uninvited. A year since Laura dropped that glass in her hand. A year since I sat in my car, soaked and broken, thinking I had no place left. Now I stood on stage at a tech summit in San Diego, presenting the results of a global innovation grant I launched 6 months ago, fully funded by the Carson estate. My heart still thudded when I looked out at crowds. But this time, I didn't feel like an outsider trying to prove something. I felt like someone who belonged. After the applause faded and the flashbulb stopped, I stepped off stage and headed backstage to breathe. That's when I saw Ethan. Yes, that Ethan. Lara's eldest son. My stepbrother. He looked different. Less smug. More human. You've come a long way, he said, nodding toward the curtain. You handled all that like a pro. I crossed my arms. Didn't expect you here. Or that. He shrugged. I came to see what the fuss was about. Thought maybe you were still the angry, rejected girl with something to prove. He paused, hands in pockets. Turns out you're not angry. And you don't have anything to prove. I tilted my head. What do you want, Ethan? He exhaled. Looked down at his shoes, then back at me. An apology. That threw me. He didn't wait for a response. I was cruel to you. Mostly because I hated how he looked at you like you were actually his daughter. I was jealous. And spoiled. And wrong. He looked me in the eyes. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know. I see it now. I didn't speak for a while. Then I said, softly, thank you. I hope you find something that makes you proud of who you are, too. He gave a small smile and walked away. That night, I sat alone in my hotel suite, watching the city lights flicker outside. I thought about the word legacy. It wasn't about money, or property, or companies. It was about what you leave behind inside people. My dad didn't just leave me his estate. He left me courage, instinct, compassion, and resilience I didn't know I had until I needed it most. A few months later, I received an email from a school in a small Midwestern town. One of the girls in our scholarship program had just been accepted to MIT, the first in her family to finish high school, the first to leave her county, the first to dream big. She wrote, "Thank you for seeing someone like me. No one ever has before." It was like reading my own younger voice. One afternoon, I returned to the lake house. It hadn't changed much. Quiet water, faded deck chairs, the same swing Dad hung from that big oak tree when I was 10. I brought a journal. I opened it and started writing. Not business plans, not strategies, but a letter.
To him.
Asterisk Dad. I thought winning would feel louder, sharper, but it feels gentle, like you were right behind me the whole time. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for not needing blood to choose me. I hope you're proud of what I'm building. I hope you're watching as I pass it on. You always said I was your best investment. I just wanted to tell you I've finally started to believe that too. Asterisk. Before I left the lake house, I placed the letter inside a mason jar and buried it beneath the oak tree roots. Not because he was there, but because a part of me always would be. 1 year later, I walked into a quiet community center in Brooklyn. We were opening the first Carson Learning Hub, a free tech and mentorship space for girls from underserved areas. No press. No ribbon-cutting ceremony. Just real smiles, real stories,
And real change.
A little girl with curly hair tugged my sleeve. "Are you famous?" she asked. I knelt down.
No.
"But someone believed in me once. Now it's my turn to believe in you." She beamed. That was enough. Laura sent a short message weeks later. "I saw the news. The center looks beautiful. Jonathan would be proud." This time, there was no bitterness. No denial. Just quiet peace. I replied with 2 words. "Thank you." On what would have been Dad's birthday, I stood by the lake again. Same swing. Same silence. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because in a world that tried to erase me, I didn't fight back with anger. I built something louder than revenge. I built the life he'd be proud of. And that was the real inheritance.